You're listening to Cinema Geekly, brought to you in association with ThinkGeek. Stuff for smart masses.
No damsels in distress, no pretty castles, no such thing as Robin Hood.
How can you be so sure he is not the real thing?
Because he can't be.
What do you say, outlaw? A final reckoning?
Welcome to Who Made Who, Cinema Geekly's Doctor Who podcast, part of Cinema Geekly Premium. I'm Anthony Lewis.
I'm Aaron De La Ossa.
And I'm Ben Knight.
Oh, we got 3 people on the podcast this week. This is awesome. Aaron is recovered mostly from Las Vegas.
Yeah, barely, man.
Hopefully you will be able to stumble and stagger your way onto the main podcast whenever we can figure out to record that later on this weekend. We are going to be talking about the latest episode of Doctor Who, but before we do that, Aaron, I wanted to get your thoughts real quick on the first 2 episodes, which I presume you did manage to see through the haze of the Las Vegas streets.
I did. Peter Capaldi, man, his energy as a doctor is it's something that I don't think a lot of the new, young, Hot Topic Who fans were quite expecting the show to turn. I mean, to kind of bring it back darker a little bit, but it's a welcome sight, man. Like, I was a little apprehensive about it at first, but now that he's starting to get his heels in and get his teeth into the role a bit, goddamn, he's putting something special on there for us.
If you wanted to, what would you grade the first episode? Because Ben and I did, we did gradings of the episode. We used our Geeky Glasses scale. So where would you rank them? I'm not going to tell you, since you didn't listen to the podcast yet. I'm not going to tell you what we graded them. So we're gonna see how close to the level we meet at.
I would say just his first episode, just for it being his first, full runner. I mean, for me, that just has to hit out of 4. There were a lot of really good parts of the episode. There were a couple of things that I just didn't really get, like the whole Clara's whole attitude towards him, and how she's kind of somewhat refusing to recognize that she dug Matt Smith because he was this young, good-looking guy. It's just it's a weird dynamic. I think they're almost trying to shoehorn in just to make their relationship somewhat interesting, like her and Peter Capaldi. It kind of threw me off a bit. But his actual parts, and then the parts with Lady Vastra and Strax and all that were awesome as usual. They're always welcome on the screen whenever I see them. So all in all, I'd say between 3.5 and 4 ballpark. The second episode I'd put right about that same spot. Just because I think you're still trying to get used to their chemistry and begin to understand how their relationship is going to be set. And I think from here on, I mean, the episodes will only get better. I mean, as evidenced with the most recent one, and how their relationship, like, now how they're going to bounce off each other. It's like, okay, I know what to expect. So I think this most recent episode was the best one they've done so far.
So yeah, you're kind of in the ballpark. Yeah. I think Ben was the low ball on episode 1. I think where he gave it a 3 and I gave it a 3.5. And then I think we both gave Into the Dalek a 4, I want to say.
It was 4, yeah.
I think we both gave that one a 4. The thing with, we talked kind of at length a little bit about Clara's story in Deep Breath, where we basically made... I don't think anybody's come out and said it or whatever, nor do we expect them to, but she was pretty much an analog for the new younger fans that have hopped on board, essentially saying, how can he be new? He looks so old. And then, having Matt Smith,
Hot Topic fans,
and then having Matt Smith literally ring in to be like, please like this guy, keep watching the show, new merchandise is coming soon, please love him. And then she's like, okay, I love him. Although I'm still not sure that that approach was necessarily justified entirely, because I really haven't seen a lot of
Well, I
people that
mean,
are
for the
like,
American fans, it probably was.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I saw, I mean, obviously we're talking really small sample sizes and stuff because I'm not locked into whatever websites or forums that tweens visit to discuss the shows that they love.
Might
But
be Tinder. That might be what they'd
I was
use.
about to say that felt like some sort of legal disclaimer to me. I don't know.
yes, it's also a bit of a legal disclaimer.
Well, at
I
least we
want
have Ben
to,
on the show to clarify that, so we're
yes,
covered.
yes, I want everyone to know that I have no idea where tweens hang out and discuss things on the internet. But no, I mean, all I saw, I mean, obviously I have kind of a tween in my house right now, and I also have seen they did like a kind of a Doctor Who world tour thing that they kind of YouTube the shit out of. And when they went to New York City, they interviewed a lot of, it looked like tweeny-ish girls or girls that were, in their teen years or into their, early 20s or whatever, and a lot of them seemed very excited for this Doctor. So I mean, I'm sure there's probably some people that maybe aren't going to give the show a chance anymore. I mean, because obviously the energy of the show has changed dramatically. It is,
Yeah.
if you watch, I mean, if you just pick a random Matt Smith episode and then pick a random Peter Capaldi episode, they will seem like two very different shows that have very similar sets. But other than that, there's a very different energy. All right, so we are going to talk about episode 3, Robot of Sherwood. And Ben, how did I do on is that a good enough pronunciation of Sherwood?
Make him say Nottingham. Let's hear that.
Sherwood's fine.
Okay.
Sherwood was a forest largely now removed that had some of its boundaries within the city of Nottingham.
There you go. Which we
There
will.
you go.
Which
Damn, dude.
and the guy who, with all the green tights and all that business, who lived there, is not called Robin Hood. He's called Robin Hood.
Robin Hood.
Yes, otherwise you put the emphasis on the wrong syllable, basically.
Yes, that is also one of my favorite sayings that I get dirty looks for in this house all the time if I say emphasis and syllable. So, but yeah, in fact, once we get to, if we ever have to mention the name of the city, I'll just pause so Ben can say it.
I should have recorded it and given you a little button like I said last week.
Yes, there we go. See, that'd be perfect. All right, so let's run through the plot real quick of this particular episode. We are taking a bit of a respite from last week, which, I mean, Deep Breath started on kind of a darker note, but I think Into the Dalek was a much darker episode than people are used to seeing. So I think this episode served as, like I said, a bit of a respite from the darker stuff we've been shown thus far. And it begins simply enough with the Doctor asking Claire where she wants to go in space and time, because if you're not familiar with the show by now, they can kind of do that wherever they feel like. Is this, by the way, before I delve further in, is this the official introduction of Capaldi's, I don't know, is this going to be his fez, this chalkboard that he has?
It's definitely a theme that he's trying to work something out, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes. And he's got this chalkboard thing going on. So this might be his thing as the Doctor. I don't know. And Clara's like, well, there's one place I've always wanted to go and see. She wants to see Robin Hood. And she thinks that the Doctor is going to say no to this, though. He's going to say he's not real. He doesn't exist. That's a stupid idea, which, of course, he does say, but she insists. So he's like, all right, he gives in. And off we go. And they arrive in Sherwood. He gets out and he's like, see, look, nothing. The TARDIS is pierced with an arrow. And voila, Robin Hood is standing there looking like the most caricaturized version of Robin Hood. I think
He looked a lot like Stephen Amell from Arrow, actually.
Yes.
His outfit was like a fucking clone.
It was like somewhere between that and the Errol Flynn version, wasn't it?
Oh yeah. I mean, it was very much so. And he's played by Tom Riley, who I think people, if you know him from anything, would probably be he plays Leonardo da Vinci on Da Vinci's Demons, which is on Stars in the U.S. and I think maybe Fox in the UK. I'm not sure.
Might be on Sky One. I can't remember. It's on one of them.
Yeah, so
he was also in the truly awesome St. Trinian's 2, The Legend of Fritton's Gold. Don't forget. How could you forget?
As Americans, I am ashamed that I have forgotten his role. Have you watched that show, Ben? Da Vinci? Because I have not seen it, but
I watched half of the first episode and then had to go out, and I didn't feel compelled to rush back to it, and I haven't done since. But I've been watching a load of other stuff, so not yet.
it's a David S. Goyer show, Aaron. So there you go. He's obviously the guy who brought us the Nolan trilogy and Man of Steel and Blade. I believe he did that stuff as well. So apparently, also he's the co-writer of some of the Call of Duty games. So now I'm not sure how to feel about this guy.
Yeah.
Like I enjoyed a couple of the Batman trilogy movies and stuff like that, but I don't know if I'd be listing Call of Duty on your writing credits. But okay, to each their own. Moving forward in the episode, the doctor immediately is suspicious of all of this. As far as he's concerned, Robin is a legend that is not real. He's like Santa Claus or the Tooth Fairy or any of that other bullshit.
Yeah,
And
Jesus.
but this
Spoilers, kids.
this Robin Hood is every bit the Robin Hood we know from the stories, and wants a hold of the doctor's box and challenges him to a duel. The doctor apparently rocking a dueling glove of some sort, which is incredible, and does in fact duel Robin Hood with a piece of Gallifreyan silverware, which I believe the old saying goes, when steel meets Gallifreyan silverware wins every time. And I think that's how the saying goes. I'm not sure. But they do have a duel, and Robin, the closest Robin comes to besting the Doctor is, I believe, debuttoning one button from the Doctor's vest, in which the Doctor then invites him to I guess run him through, and then the Doctor sidesteps Robin, knocks him into the water, and at that point, they're all best of friends, or at least in the case of Robin and the Doctor, frenemies, I guess. Because I'm thinking the Doctor sees a lot of himself in this guy, and this is why they do not get along very well at all. Plus the fact that he kind of thinks that there's something else going on here a little bit deeper. Also, is this the first time anybody's aware that Clara's outfit changed so matched the period in which they were visiting?
And she had a lot of time to put in a fuckload of extensions in her hair too.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm wondering which previous companion had that outfit
Right.
in the TARDIS wardrobe.
It's good to know that TARDIS now has a spray tanning booth also.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it is bigger on the inside. I mean, they've got a swimming pool in the library for goodness sake.
Right.
I'm sure they've got a tanning bed somewhere.
I think they put it in for Captain Jack, I think, if I remember right.
The story continues. We learn a little bit more about the scenario that we are in, and it is, in fact, like everything we've read in every Robin Hood story ever from all time. There's a Maid Marian. He does not know where she is. There's an evil sheriff of. Go ahead, Ben. Throw it in there.
Nottingham.
Yes, there's an evil sheriff of
Nottingham.
And this podcast is going to go so smooth.
Could we just loop that for like a good 5 minutes in the middle of the episode?
Like always, he is pillaging and stealing from the people around him, and Robin Hood is trying his best to defend these poor people. In fact, things are so storybook in this place. Not only are all the merry men there, not only do they look like every story we've ever read, but there's in fact an archery contest, which Clara warns Robin is a trap, and he's of course it's a trap. And
that's what we used to call them back in the 1100s. It's fine.
Claps, yes.
Yeah, that's right.
For all anyone else knows, especially in America, we don't know any fucking things. So sure, we will go with that. I did not make a mistake at all. That was clearly just me exploiting my knowledge of early English history.
I'm very impressed.
Thank you very much. So we have our archery contest with people not shooting bows and arrows properly at all, which is a bit odd. But hey, they're hitting the bullseye, so that's all that counts. Robin is, of course, wearing the worst disguise of all time, which I believe consisted of a raggedy cloak and a giant floppy hat. Otherwise, he was wearing all the rest of his costume. Of course, everyone was fooled by this. And
Oh, except the sheriff. He did notice that he wasn't so unfamiliar after all.
yes,
It was all a bit panto at this point.
yeah, it took him a couple of minutes, but he's like, that guy looks really familiar. Take off that hat for a minute. Oh my gosh,
It's
that
Errol
is
Flynn. No, it's Kevin Costner. No, it's this guy. Yeah.
it's Carrie Elwes. My goodness. Of course, things tend to get out of hand a little bit. Robin, of course, wins, and then the Doctor kind of steps in with a my sonic screwdriver is bigger than yours moment, trying to upstage. I'm not sure exactly what the point of him trying to upstage Robin was. Maybe to prove that there is something off about all of this, or maybe he just really does dislike this person. Eventually, he blows up the target with his sonic screwdriver. After things get a bit too silly, I would wager they got too silly after the Doctor fired an arrow off of a knight's chest, which ricocheted into a bullseye. Much like that Michael Jordan commercial from.
I was just thinking that,
man. So we the things get out of hand. Robin eventually, I guess, kind of wins. The award is a golden arrow. But once the jig is up and the sheriff realizes that it is indeed Robin Hood, the knights come after them, and there is a sword fight. And finally, the Doctor gets some sort of insight as to what's going on. The knights are in fact robots, as we have now come across what is apparently a running theme so far in Doctor Who. We've had 3 episodes and 3 robots. We've had a robot antagonist per episode now. I think that streak may be broken in the next episode, but for the time being, 3 episodes, 3 robot antagonists. As it turns out, the Doctor and Robin and Clara get captured, but is as we learned from the 50th anniversary episode, it's very important to get captured. This way you can learn more about the situation you're in, which of course Clara does later on, as the Doctor and Robin Hood kind of banter back and forth in a really fun scene. But there's really nothing in it of value to at least explaining the plot. What we do learn is that these robots landed here quite some time ago. And they were, I believe the Doctor eventually finds out they're on their way to the Promised Land. So that is our third reference in 3 shows. This time a far more subtle reference than definitely than the first episode, but also than the second. There was no Missy in this episode. It was just a little text note, but it is there. Again, as we discussed in the last episode, keeping it fresh in the minds of everybody. It turns out their ship needs gold, and that is what they are taking and melting down. The ship needs gold to repair itself. As best we can tell, the sheriff is the sheriff and not a robot. Am I correct in that? That he was just a guy who was trying
just
to
a guy who had a glimpse of power.
Yes, trying to use these machines to his own advantage, helping them out so he can help himself out.
Which I'd like to say did give rise to the single best comedy moment in the show, but I suspect it might only be particularly laugh out loud funny if you're British because of the references in it. But anyway, we'll come back to it maybe.
Yes. So of course, once you've reached this stage in the plot, it essentially becomes, well, we have to stop these people, and it was not a deep literary plot device or anything like that. It was essentially, we need to escape and we need to stop them, which of course they do. Really, the Doctor's main concern here was deciphering who was really who in this episode. He thought the sheriff was perhaps a robot. He definitely at this point thought Robin was the sheriff. He thought maybe this was all concocted by the robots as some sort of distraction, which, he later kind of puts the pieces together that why would they create somebody to kind of thwart them? It doesn't make any sense. They do eventually stop the ship in what some people are really railing against on the internet with the scene with the arrow. I think
it was crap, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit, but I mean, we'll talk about it in a second. But I think people went way too overboard with it in particular, but with that scene in particular anyway. But as it stands, obviously, the robots were stopped. The the sheriff ended up much like Daenerys Targaryen's brother, kind of. At least, well, I shouldn't say kind of like, much worse than the fate of Daenerys
Yeah.
Targaryen's brother. He took a golden bath for sure, and that's not nearly as erotic sounding as I am making it seem at the moment.
Golden Bath has to be at least 3 guys.
Yes. This is the kind where you don't live afterwards, involving the metallic substance. Let me see here. I'm completely off the fucking rails right now.
It was the
After that
Golden Bath
reference.
that did it.
Yeah, the
That
golden
threw it
bath.
right off.
I mean,
It's
it
taking me
always.
to an unfortunate visual place now, and
Yes.
I may not be back.
Well, it's 3 grown men, and if any one of them happens to be a little person, then it's just golden puddles.
There you go. Okay, so where were we? Okay, bad guys defeated. There's a point in the episode where the Doctor shows Robin all of the legends about him, and we feel like there's a moment here where Robin and Clara are talking, and there's going to be some big reveal. And at the end, the big reveal is that Robin Hood is just a person. He's a real guy who just became legend at some point. He asked, like, is it true that people are going to forget I exist and I've just become a story? And that is kind of, for me anyway, the real story here is about heroes and legends and how the Doctor is perceiving himself. Because he does have this really great conversation. He's, the Doctor's like, I'm not a hero. Because he kind of takes his story and turns it on his head. And it sounds like Robin's going to tell his own story, but he's really kind of telling the Doctor's story about somebody who saw the plight of people who needed help, and instead of stealing from the rich and giving to the poor, he stole a TARDIS and went to go help people. And he's like, Clara is, you're her hero. And he says, I'm not a hero. And he's like, I'm not either, but if we pretend to be, maybe we'll inspire people to be, heroes. Maybe we're just going to be stories. Although all of this reference to the fact that Doctor Who is in fact actually just stories, maybe Missy will just be the end of the show. Like, they'll break down all the walls and just reveal a camera crew like in a Mel Brooks film, and that'll be
merchandising. Where the real money of the series is
it'll
made.
be the end of Blazing Saddles. Yeah.
So are you saying Missy's going to pull off a wig and it's really just Stephen Moffat and drag? Like, is that how the show's going to end?
I think so. And what an ending that would be as well.
Only if they can get the rights to Journey, so they can play "Don't Stop Believing." Just like
Whilst everyone has a golden bath, yeah.
Yeah.
that's if you're going to end a show after 50 years, that's how you do it.
Oh, absolutely, no arguments there at all. But yeah, I mean, I think so. That's where we leave the episode. No real tease to the overarching story with Missy and the Nether Space or anything like that. So that is kind of where we leave things for this episode. But yeah, I thought Ben, I thought that was kind of the theme of the story was really more about the heroes and legends aspect, because it feels like so far 3 episodes in, every episode is really focusing on the image of the Doctor and who he thinks he is and who other people think he is and how they view him. What did you think of the episode?
Well, just picking up on that bit, I think it's about identity, perception, I suppose constructs as well, because maybe also literally, because you were saying about the number of robots 3 episodes in. Mm-hmm. And of course, something that occurred to me is the intro. I mean, we sort of mentioned it in passing. It might even have been off air last week. I don't remember. About what's contained in that intro. Yep. And of course, it's full of clockwork, yes. which we saw in obviously the first episode, but also when the Knight's arm comes off in this episode, it's the same sort of brassy cogs that came out there, which they didn't need to do. I mean, they could have done wires or nothing in particular or whatever else. So
sure, blinking lights.
It's quite obviously deliberate references to this sort of clockwork thing and identity constructs and everything else, because of course the robots seem to be having some sort of existential crisis as well. They're looking for the destination on their system is the promised land, and so on. So I mean, there's although it's obviously trying to step slightly out of the arc, which they always do in episode 3 of any series of Doctor Who. I don't know if you've noticed it, but and of course Mark Gatiss wrote episode 3 of the last time he wrote an episode, it was episode 3 of the series as well.
Yep.
So it is stepping slightly outside the arc. It's a standalone for the best part, and it's a good one. I mean, there's lots of geeky back references. There's the Patrick Troughton image where he was playing Doctor Who in whatever year that was.
Yeah.
There's loads of that in there as well. But this was just a good. I have a feeling it would be called a romp in some circles of journalism.
Sure.
And it was. It was borderline pantomime in places. It was.
Yeah.
It had some cracking jokes in it. It was actually the first episode of Doctor Who I can remember in a long time where I've genuinely laughed out loud several times.
Oh yeah. It was mostly between Capaldi and Tom Riley, who were just had really great chemistry together.
It seemed so unlikely as well, didn't it? At the start of it seemed all a bit forced, and then gradually as the episode came on, it really worked.
A little bit, yeah. I would not at this point. I would not be upset if he just for one episode returns or something. Like I know they did it with Matt Smith a couple of times where they had an episode where it seemed like everybody from the previous episode showed up for one episode.
Sort of curtain call sort of thing.
Yeah, like the pirates who flew away on the spaceship with the hologram doctor, and they had like a whole bunch of little like one-note cameos from her. I would not be upset.
The guy who played Craig too. He had a couple episodes of Matt Smith.
Yeah, absolutely. He's the guy who's taking over for another Craig Ferguson, right? He's taking over the Late Show here in the States. Yeah. I feel so fucking terrible because I'm like, I can't wait for Craig from Doctor Who to have that show because I liked him an awful lot, and I cannot remember his name one bit. So I feel absolutely.
I can't off the top of my head.
Yeah, I feel absolutely terrible for not.
I don't feel bad because Ben doesn't know his name either. So
I really don't remember. I'll look him up while you're talking.
There you go. That's what I remember him as. Anything stick out to you, Aaron, from the episode?
Yeah, the callback to Pertwee with the Venusian Aikido that Capaldi busted out.
Yes.
I was laughing my tits off when that happened, man. It was awesome. Yeah, no, I was actually going to use the word romp. So it's good that Ben dropped it. It was just a fun episode. It was kind of like the Vampires in Venice with Matt Smith. Right. It didn't really progress the story, but there was still a nod to it, and it was just kind of a fun little fun little way to cleanse the palate before they come back and punch you in the mouth with something serious. So
yeah, the show definitely needed a bit of a break. Because it was
heavy.
Yeah, it was pretty heavy for a couple of episodes, so it needed something. And I was wondering, I was like, I wonder how Capaldi is going to work the comedy, into his character, because so far, because obviously he's had doses of it here and there, but it's been very, very dry and very, very, it wasn't like, I'm trying to think of a good, it wasn't like Matt Smith's wacky comedy. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And also they didn't give Ben Miller the wacky comedy either. He's a stand-up comedian and a sketch comedian in the UK, although he's done a bit of drama recently.
That's right. Yeah.
But him as the sheriff, they could easily have gone sort of too far down. I suppose the Alan Rickman route.
Yes.
In terms of that, and they didn't. They let him do something of himself with it, and I thought that was good. That said, he delivered some of the comedy so dryly.
Mm-hmm.
The joke I was referring to, I was just trying to find the quote actually. Yeah, there it is. So when he's talking about when he's revealing his plan, almost like a Bond villain to Clara,
right.
She's sort of asking about what's next or whatever, and he says, Nottingham's not enough. I want Derby, Lincoln, Worksop. Okay, so Derby is a shitty little town just down the road from Nottingham. It's just a little hole. Lincoln, I guess, the next major city across. Worksop is a village that's in the middle of a forest and even was in 1190. And then jumps from Worksop to the world.
Right.
And I don't know why it was the long pause with Derby straight afterwards. That was my favorite moment of the show.
It's
I
good to
think
know
right
that
there.
workshop is the doorstep to the world.
Hey, it sits on the A1. There's a petrol station there, and it's a great place. You should visit.
I think for Americans, it might be akin to if you're like, first New York, then Schenectady, and then the world afterwards, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe you could just go from New York and then just say New Jersey. Perhaps would also be, I suppose, a good reference as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, we should probably just let's talk about the fucking 500-pound golden arrow in the room, because this is the scene that people really. This is at least the one on places that I go where people chat about this show. This is the scene that really got under people's skin an awful lot. The scene is the robots are escaping in their ship, but the ship is not ready to fly. It's not gonna make orbit. It's gonna explode, and they are trying to think of some way to make this all work. And then all of a sudden they realize, well, shit, gold is powering their ship. We have a golden arrow, and despite the fact that I believe it's Robin is injured, and the doctor reveals he's not actually really good at shooting an arrow. He's screwed with the arrow to.
And they all work as a team.
So yes,
man.
They all have to come together. It's the '60s all over again, and they they make this bow and arrow thing work, and they shoot the arrow into the robot ship, which gives it enough juice to make atmosphere before it explodes.
No, I don't know about you.
A great big golden bath.
Well,
right, of course.
It certainly was that. But I don't know about you. I mean, oddly enough, by coincidence, the last time I drove through one of the rougher suburbs of Nottingham in my car, I was running out of diesel, and I was really happy when somebody just randomly threw a fucking bottle of diesel at my car, and suddenly my car was full of diesel again.
Holy shit.
What a load of bullshit. Seriously, come on. Mark Gatiss, you can do better than this.
See, maybe it's just... from my perspective as a really hardcore science fiction fan, and I'm just used to I mean a lot of genres produce a lot of bullshit, but I don't know, for my money there's no genre that has produced more bullshit than science fiction. And as an abused science fiction fan, I'm just used to coming up with some sort of explanation that fills the gaps for things that don't make any sense.
Well, sure, but it did feel like, I mean, Gatiss phoned that in. Come on.
Absolutely.
That's like, hang on, how do we get this? Oh, I don't know, maybe they just fire it or something. Well, it's an arrow.
Well, I'm sure the discussion either A, didn't happen, or B, happened along the lines of, well, it would take too long to film this, but, what we didn't reveal is that their ship has some sort of gold detection device that just sucks the energy from the gold. So no matter where it is, it slurps it up. If it's touching the whole
just
ship,
slurps up any ounce of golden shower that would hit it. Is that what you're getting at?
That's right. Aaron is not going to let that go at all. We're going to hear about this for weeks.
Oh yeah, most likely.
What would have been fine if I just left it as golden bath and then not said anything else.
What's said is said, mate.
I had to open my big fucking American mouth and say it's not as sexual as it sounds.
So you had to open your big American mouth and start spouting off about golden baths and showers.
And then Aaron, of course, says, "No, it is as sexual as you made it sound. We're going to run with that." But yeah, it was of course ridiculous. It was the weakest scene in the episode, but it's not for a lot of people, they're like, "Fuck that! That's an episode breaker to me. This episode sucked," and I'm like, "That's what broke it for you?"
I'm going to really piss those people off. Right, hang on. So you're getting all pissy about that, which I kind of understand.
Right.
But yet, that was what was required to fuel the ship. They used gold for fuel. We remember that. We'll put that in our little pocket here. That's fine.
Right.
So we saw a scene earlier on where the kind of robot Knights Templar, because there was a bit of a sort of Templar-y sort of thing about them, they were using the gold. This is their fuel, remember? Melting it down and turning it into some sort of SIM card from the looks of it. It even had the little cut-off bit on the corner like you get on a SIM card. So hang on, right, so what, their fuel has to be put in SIM card shape in order to work? Or are they using it for its conductive purposes, in which case it's inefficient to use a fuel you've got none of as a conducting metal. Seriously, there was so much wrong with this from a science fiction point of view.
Right.
The SIM card thing, it made me think of the fires of Pompeii, like the episode he was in, because like it looked a lot like those golden SIM cards, like those other they were making an episode also.
Yeah, they look like big circuits. Yeah.
Yeah, that seemed kind of odd.
I mean, look, that's not an episode breaker at all. I mean, it was really silly. I saw people try to make suggestions they thought were better that seemed equally or more silly to me. Like,
I want you to explain to me right now one explanation that sounded more ridiculous than the way they actually did it. Go for it.
Somebody suggested that the impact of the arrow would have pushed them off course enough to get them into orbit.
And you have proven your point. Fair enough. I stand corrected.
I'm like, what they could have done is the TARDIS could have just floated overhead, and the Doctor just gave the ship a golden shower.
There you go.
To push them over the limit.
See, I thought you were going to go ahead and just make sense. You just use the TARDIS to engulf the ship. And then
there was a golden shower shortly thereafter because, of course, it exploded with all that gold on it.
Right, it was. Yeah, exactly.
And that heat, it would have been molten. I don't know. Where's this going? This show's not normally like this when I'm not on it. This isn't good. I'm going to go.
But no, I mean, look, it was. I thought it was a welcome break, and there needed to be some where we laughed and had some fun and stuff because. Like we were saying, Capaldi has had humorous moments in the first two episodes, but nothing that was supposed to be straight up, comedy. Like the scene is meant for you to laugh during the entire scene, and they did quite a bit of that. And I thought it was really good. I want to give props to Tom Riley as well because. He did play like a very storybook version of Robin Hood, but also a couple of times kind of let the guard down a little bit, where he's kind of like, this is really just a thing I'm doing to, to keep up. It felt sometimes like he was keeping up appearances. You know what I mean? Where he's always constantly ha 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 before everything.
Well, that was about his perception of himself again. It was the sort of strand that they were following through with the Doctor. I think it takes quite an impressive actor to do that because on the one hand, you do want them to, to enjoy your sort of pantomime hero sort of routine, almost kind of Disney-esque, and then to be able to just subtly enough turn that into something with a bit of, with another dimension. That's quite a talent, actually.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, I liked him a lot. He really stood out, for sure. Yeah, I would not be upset if he returned at some point because I think they played off really well together. And of course, at the end of the episode, when Robin and the sheriff are having their battle, he learned from the Doctor at the end. He used the Doctor's sidestep move to give the sheriff a golden bath. So.
I should say as well that talking about people whinging about it online, I saw I think it was on Google Plus, which is normally where intelligent people hang out, so I'm a bit confused by that. On Google Plus, an Australian guy on some Australian Doctor Who thing was saying, why did they use? What was it? I've seen pictures of Nottingham Castle. That wasn't Nottingham Castle. Correct. It was Caerphilly Castle. In South Wales, like everything else in Doctor Who. Right. And the reason they didn't use Nottingham Castle is a very simple one. Nottingham Castle is surrounded by fucking tower blocks, a shopping centre. Yes. You'd really fucking struggle, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, I mean, clearly for a show that, they have increased in budget over time, but obviously not so much that they're like, we're going to shoot as much in Wales as humanly possible.
Sure.
And every once in a while we'll I'm trying to think of the amount of money that it would cost for them to CG the actual castle to make it look like it did.
Oh, it'd be insane.
To remove the modern elements.
They did use two castles. They used another one, which I can't remember the name of now, that's from somewhere near Brighton on the south coast, Bodiam or something like that. Mm-hmm. I don't know it very well, but it's a kind of fairy tale type looking castle on the outside. So, people really look for trouble, don't they?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, people are going to find anything to complain about, and especially we mentioned it before. Anything that's a much loved franchise that has any length of time to it whatsoever, you're going to have people all over the spectrum. But I don't know. This was I don't think it was as good as Into the Dalek was, but I think it served its purpose in this case, which was, giving us a bit of a break, having a little bit of fun, and we're going to need those timeouts. I don't think people want an entire season of, if you thought this episode was dark, wait till you watch next week's episode. And I don't know if people want an entire season of that. I mean, by the time the season's over, people are going to be wholly depressed with this show. And I don't necessarily, I think the aim at the end is, I think they're aiming for a darker tone in general, but they're also smart enough to realize that Doctor Who is still about, it's still supposed to be a fun show. And while they can have dark storytelling or something that's a little more adult or dramatic or anything like that, they still have to have some fun every once in a while. It is after all still a fun show.
Well, and now that it's so beloved in our country, they got to try to dumb it down a little bit here and there. Just,
absolutely.
Keep everybody happy.
Do you know, I just Googled something. You asked a question right at the start of this that I hadn't really given much thought to, and there's a very serious answer to it on Wikipedia of all places. So disclaimer, this may be bollocks, but although they have pretty heavily cited it, so maybe. On the 4th of September 2014, the BBC announced that a beheading scene from the episode's climactic battle had been edited out due to the recent murders of James Foley and Stephen Sotloff by ISI. In the original scene, Robin would have decapitated the sheriff, revealing that the sheriff was a cyborg. So actually, it turns out he would have been one of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Huh. Oh, wow. Okay.
That is
thanks, Wikipedia.
Yes, that is both enlightening and depressing. All of the
it is, isn't it? That kind of annoys me. The authorities are Metro magazine, which is a piece of crap, Forbes, which maybe, and I don't know what this thing is. I don't know what. There's some other source that I don't know what it is.
I mean, I've seen. So, yeah. I do remember having seen the news travel around a bit, but obviously we're talking about the credibility of the sources being cited, obviously, and not too hard to find sources on the internet of all places that may in fact not be entirely credible. So I know that may come as a surprise to some of you, but to us here in internet land, it happens all too often. But enlightening and depressing, of course. So we're gonna just jolt.
I'm kind of pleased. I'm kind of pleased that wasn't the ending, because that would have been quite annoying.
And see you next week. No, we gotta hit our final thoughts on this. Aaron, any final thoughts on the episode, and where would you grade this one?
Like I said, it was a very welcome break. To borrow Ben's word again, it was a nice romp. It was a fun break from all the serious times. I mean, but to me, I don't think there's going to be that many episodes like that this season. So I mean, enjoy it while you can. I think it's going to get pretty dark again pretty fast. I'd put it right in line with the rest. About a 4 out of 5 geek classes. I enjoyed it.
Okay, Ben, final thoughts. A grading.
I agree that it was a nice step outside. I'm not a huge fan of the constant, relentless story arcing that Moffat does, so quite keen on the little bit of break there. Loved the humour in it. Reminded me I want to see Ben Miller return to doing stuff with his old show Armstrong and Miller. And I'm going to say 3.5, and the next episode is going to be seriously dark. I've seen an extended trailer for it on the BBC this afternoon, and it looks good.
I mean, I don't really have much else to add. I think we kind of covered all the bases for a show that was intentionally not overly deep. It had the most basic of story, really, just enough to carry over a tiny nod to the arc, and people. I guess it's possible that the whole Missy arc may be tied in with the character arc of the Doctor, kind of discovering who he is, what kind of person
and
he
what
is.
he's looking for as well.
Yes, of course. There's not a lot else to add. I mean, this did kind of just exist as just like a fun ride episode with I guess a bit of a I guess a bit of a sour ending, I guess, with that fucking arrow thing. I'll just be happy to not hear anybody talk about it anymore.
I'm pleased about the arrow now because it would that pales into insignificance next to the sheriff being a fucking cyborg. So I'm all right with it.
Yeah, or the arrow just knocking it off course enough for it to reach orbit. Of course. I wish I could.
Can we award each week on this show? And please, I reckon people should tweet in with these
Terrible fan theories.
Yeah, just like worst theory ever for each episode. So if you spot them somewhere on Twitter or wherever, I think people need to send them in.
I wish we had thought of this earlier because the award for the first episode of who Missy was would have been to whoever it was that suggested it was actually River Song somehow. So that
was just wishful thinking, wasn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, because you'd have to really, really, really somehow stretch that it is River Song.
I know why people are saying it though. There was I guess kind of spoiler alert, I suppose here.
Right.
Is that your standard practice just to say spoiler alert for the show?
Yes.
All right. Okay. So spoiler alert. When they were filming some episodes during the series, it looks like the finale. I think there were a load of leaked photographs online, and the photographs included the headstones from a cemetery we've previously seen, which might lead people to think it was something to do with River Song.
Perhaps. But I mean, yeah, people were stretching it kind of a bit. I mean,
so they're going back to Trenzalore then, from the sounds of it.
Oh no, different cemetery, a far more terrestrial one.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm feeling like 3.5 maybe for this episode. I didn't want to give it any lower than that because I felt like giving it any lower than that is giving in to the people who are like, fuck that arrow scene. This is a terrible show. And I feel like going any lower than that is giving in to those people, and I am refusing. I'm refusing to do that. That scene did not break the episode for me at all. Was it convoluted a little bit? Absolutely. Was it a little cheap? Most definitely. But I think
it would have been awesome if one of them would have put on some sunglasses like David Caruso and said something cool before they shot the arrow.
Oh yeah,
that would have been the way to do it.
Yeah, and do some really terrible James Bond like pun after
exactly.
Afterwards. Yeah,
like some kind of
either that or you want to sort of. Yeah, I was about to say we're a stinging sort of Joss Whedon sort of Buffy type line there. That would have been nice.
We will have to consult Glenn on that to see what kind of reference would have been made there. He is the Buffy expert on the podcast. All right, so
I learned a random Buffy fact this week. Sorry, I know this is totally off topic. Did you know this? The murder house from American Horror Story series 1,
yes,
was the house that the Halloween party was in the episode when everyone turned into their characters in Buffy.
Oh, I did not know that.
It was like a frat house or something, wasn't it? There you go. Random fact.
Because I had seen that and I had watched all of American Horror Story season. I didn't pay that much attention, I guess. It's been a while since I've seen Buffy, so I didn't make it very far into that show. So unlike Glenn, and apparently you, Ben, as well. Have you watched that show?
I was a big fan of, in fact, a big fan of both of those. Buffy and Horror Story is just fantastic. I felt a little bit. Again, we're off topic. Last week it was Star Trek. This week it's Horror Story.
American Horror Story.
Yeah, I felt a little bit kind of knocked off course a little bit on the last series. For all of its genius, I thought there were some kind of poor moments. But Freak Show looks like it's going to be impressive. But I would say this: FX, please, when you release your trailers, I don't know why you've suddenly started doing this year, but please make them available outside the US. Otherwise, we have to find someone's crappy bloody phone version of it that they've. So seriously, that's just horseshit. Play fair for FX. That is all. FX, I'm sure, listen to the show. They subscribe. They've given you money on Patreon, which I think you might want to mention. Hey, there we go.
I could mention it, but theoretically speaking, the only people who will ever get to listen to this episode would be the people who are already paying. So yeah, there's really no need to plug it on here. We're gonna keep plugging the shit out of it on the regular podcast.
Otherwise you become those assholes when you buy a DVD and at the start of the DVD it says, "You're a criminal, you're a pirate, you're everything else." And I'm the one who bought the fucking DVD.
Right.
You should be saying thank you.
Yeah, I mean, every pirated piece of material I've ever seen don't have those warnings at the beginning of it. So I'm wondering why the people who get them. Maybe
damn, that's a great point, man.
maybe they're warning the people who then rip the DVDs. I don't know.
Because you spend your time flicking through that crap. Honestly, what's with these people?
Absolutely.
Yeah, have you ever seen any of those warnings on an allegedly pirated file anywhere?
I've never watched a pirated video. I'm a member of the legal profession. How very dare you? And yes, but only on VHS. So not since the advent of DVDs and stuff.
Oh right, yeah. Well, who did transfer over VHSs?
Right.
How else were you gonna watch WrestleMania 4?
In true fashion, in true Cinema Geekly fashion, I'm going to segue nicely from American Horror Story, which is a spooky show, Ben, to what might look like a spooky episode of Doctor Who coming up.
A sinister Scottish guy doing scary bedtime story. What more do you need? There it is.
Wow. So for Ben Knight, Aaron DeLosa, I'm Anthony Lewis, and we will be back next week, perhaps with a new ill-advised Golden Bath T-shirt. Because we are
go with the fisting one.
We are the masters of ill-advised T-shirt designs. We will be back next week talking about episode 4 of Series 8, entitled "Listen."